Alright everyone, Black Knight here, getting back into Age of Sigmar. Why? Why am I getting back into Age of Sigmar? Well, here are the things I think might be contributing to my problem. I don't really quite know myself. I think some of it has to do with a combination of all of these things. Plus, one is I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos of people playing the game, and it looks like a hell of fun. But the first thing, I have a cabinet full of models, and these models are mostly Games Workshop models. So I would like to be able, I love to be able to see them on the table. And due to my multitude of factions that I have, or armies, and with Age of Sigmar's scale, they are all viable armies. I don't even have to collect anything more to actually play with all the stuff that I have, which is awesome. Unlike some other games where I would actually have to take what I have and add more to it, I can actually play. Would have a bunch of fully functioning armies. And granted, they might not be the most optimum, right? But I could still play with it. And people that come over, they could still play with it. The smaller armies that Age of Sigmar offers means more completed projects. A lot of times it takes me a long time to, as far as like or in a timeline, I might not actually, when I say it takes me years to paint something, I don't mean I'm painting it every single day for years. I'm just saying total timeline from start to finish takes years for me to complete. So smaller armies means more completed projects for me, which I would like. Age of Sigmar is easier to get other people into, mainly due to the fact that, again, due to the smaller armies, it is less expensive to get into, especially compared to other games that are available. Say, Kings of War, or even if you're looking at Games Workshop products, it used to be that Warhammer 40k or Warhammer Fantasy was cost prohibitive compared to Warhammer 40k. However, I would say that even now, Age of Sigmar is more affordable than what 40k is. So it's even easier to get people into than 40k, which is great. Plus, all the miniatures can actually do something. It's not where you come to the table and depending on what the meta is currently, great, I have this stuff, my opponent fielded it Y or X, I can't do anything, hence I pretty much auto lose. I'm just moving my miniatures around the table and taking them off. So much fun. No, you can actually, everything has a chance of doing everything in Age of Sigmar. Which then leads me to my last point, in that this game is, believe it or not, a lot of fun. I actually had more fun playing this game than the fantasy alternative, Kings of War. I kind of detailed this in my other podcast, but just going into a little bit of it now. The reason why I think I have more fun playing this game is that you are more immersed into it. As I said before, all of your miniatures, all of your guys have the chance of actually doing something good. They actually have a chance of wounding anything from the lowliest peasant to the mightiest demon. Everything is viable. And the other thing is where some people look at randomness, or let's say the prioritization of each turn, as a huge detriment to Age of Sigmar. I look at it as a great boon. And why I say that is because that randomness, the not knowing who's going to get to go first on the next turn, makes it a interesting tactical challenge to try to overcome. Do I get to go next? I don't know. What happens if my opponent goes next? I have to try to figure that out, right? Versus if something is so structured and chess-like in chess, if I know exactly how far someone's going to move, if I know, based on probability, how much damage something should do, it's when things start to go bad, they've gone bad, right? And there's no way to recover. However, in Age of Sigmar, there's always that chance that you could get that double turn. There's always that chance that they might fail their charge, right? You might get in. Nothing's over until the end of the game. There's always that chance that you can make a swing around, which is not true in other games, which I think is which is fun. How to get other people back into the game? How do you do that? So basically, I am interested in hearing from you is how are you getting people back into Age of Sigmar, especially if in your area it is basically no one's playing this game anymore. Which I have to tell you is pretty much what's happening, which is what happened in my area. I'm not a brand loyalist. I don't care about whatever company makes a certain game. If I think the game is fun, if I think the miniatures look cool, I will play that game and I will buy those miniatures, right? Or plan to buy. But anyway, so a lot of people just wanted to make that disclaimer so you don't think I'm just a GW fanboy, which by me saying that, you might automatically puts me in that group. But whatever, I don't care. So local scene, as far as this is how I perceive it, is that a lot of people were very burnt / emotionally hurt by Games Workshop what they did to 8th edition, and I think basically it brought a lot of uncertainty as to should they even get involved with this new game, right? Age of Sigmar. So there's that huge PR uphill climb that Games Workshop has to do. The games that are played to kind of entice my local group to be interested has to be more than just pickup games. So it has to be a campaign or some kind of way to link each game so that it brings people to coming each week. And also I think the problem when we tried the last time, when Age of Sigmar first came out, is that we went too big too fast. What I mean by that is that people were taking their entire 8th edition armies, putting them on the table, and playing a game of Age of Sigmar, which I think is the worst thing you can possibly do. The General's Handbook has finally provided us a structure as to what is a good-sized game, and too much to my liking, it is with a smaller model count than what you needed for 8th edition Warhammer, which is a good move, Games Workshop. Your models are already pretty expensive, especially when you do your region price capping or price setting regionally, rather than just using whatever is the local fluctuation of the economy. But this makes it more attainable to get people into the game, is the smaller game size. But anyway, so here are some of the ideas that I have thought about, and I'd be very interested to see if you think these are good, or if you have unique things that you've done with your club that you think would bring people back to the game, or even just playing it. They don't have to come back. Like, I don't care. They don't need to be like, I love Games Workshop only, I will only buy their models. No, they don't need to do that. But basically, of like, hey, you guys want to play Age of Sigmar? Yeah, cool. Not like, what the hell is wrong with you? I don't, which is basically how I feel most people think now. So some of the ideas I've thought about are just paint and play leagues. In my local group, how the paint and plays work, I'm sure all of you do something similarly, is we would start, even like with 40k, start at 500 points, give people a couple months to paint towards that, so it's actually attainable. Then increase the size by 250 points each month, and you basically meet once a month to show what you've painted and play games. And that month basically gives you the time to actually paint the models that you said you would. And you can only paint with painted models is the other thing. So none of this, you get bonus points for painting. So basically, really the goal was to paint with painted stuff. Play with painted stuff, sorry. But the problem with that I see with my particular group is that wouldn't be with the correct frequency as to which to reintroduce a new game to them. So maybe paint and play wouldn't be the best thing. Maybe it's the ladder campaign that's presented in the General's Handbook. Maybe that would be the best. But is that not enough? Does there need to be more of a draw rather than just, I'm going to challenge whoever has the most points this week? What are you doing in your particular group that you link games together? Is there some type of campaign that you're doing? What does that look like? I'm really interested in seeing what you're doing. Because some of the other stuff in the General's Handbook, like the, the growing your warbands thing, the issue with that is that it only focuses on a few armies, and it can become imbalanced. I'm looking for something that's balanced, but then you can grow it as far as like your army, and basically getting people interested enough to keep coming back each week to play the game. And the other thing I was thinking of is starting at 1,000 points and slowly increase while playing through the missions that are in the General's Handbook. The reason why I think 1,000 points is the best is because it seems like you have enough breadth in the miniatures that you can put on the table that you can start using different combos with your war scrolls, but it's not so much that it's overwhelming, as in it takes people multiple hours to play a game. You can still get the games done fairly quickly, but you're not getting bogged down through flipping through war scrolls, seeing what everything does. You have a small enough, basically, war scroll count that you can keep track of everything. And then as you get more used to the game, basically because it's like a new game compared to 8th edition, you can start increasing the number of war scrolls / models that you have, and the games don't take forever. But is 1,000 points the right amount? Should it be less? Should it be slightly more? I wouldn't want to go too much more than 1,000 points, because I think that's the sweet spot for starting, but I'm very interested to see what you guys have to think, so please let me know. And these are the house rules, basically, that we'd be using. So obviously, using everything in the General's Handbook for the match play section. Like the 3 rules of 1, monsters don't get cover, things like that. So, yeah, pretty much everything there, obviously points, all that stuff. Now, base sizes. Rounds and squares are just fine for our group. I really don't think it's going to be a problem. But here's something that I think I haven't seen or heard any this idea anywhere else. So maybe this is a new idea that can spread through the community like wildfire, which would be pretty awesome. So rounds and squares. A lot of times people have the problem with the squares is that since they're typically smaller than what, if they have had the opportunity of getting upgraded to an Age of Sigmar faction, like Lizardmen are now the Seraphon, and now all get produced on round bases. If you still had them on the old squares, you can fit more of them into combat. So for example, here's my idea. Maybe this would be better to actually make this into a graph rather than just speaking it, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyway. 25mm squares. Okay. So if you were on 25mm squares, you could technically fit 2 people, basically have 2 ranks attacking the model in front of the first guy. Okay? So basically enemy and then 2 of your models right behind one another. Because at 25mm, that's technically, 0.98 inches. Okay? But a lot of those 25mm rounds are 25mm squares, are now being produced on 32mm rounds. Which means at 32mm, it's over an inch. So at an inch attack range, technically, you should only be getting 1 rank of guys in. What you could do is say, I don't care if they're on 25mm squares or if they're on 32mm rounds. If you're on now 32mm rounds for that model, you get 1 rank of guys in at 1 inch. At 2 inches, if they have a range of 2 inches, you can get 2 ranks of guys in. Doesn't matter if they're on 25mm squares or 32mm rounds. Obviously, 3 guys deep would be too much. Now, 20mm squares. Now, at 25mm rounds. As I just told you with 25mm, if they're butts to nuts, you can get 2 guys at the 25 millimeters in range of a 1-inch attack. Okay, so at 1 inch for those 20 millimeter squares, doesn't matter if they're on squares or if they're on 25 millimeter rounds. At 1 inch, you can have 2 ranks of guys that are attacking, you know, the opponent that's across the first rank guy. At 2 inches now. Now, the math here, I think I would probably give it to the fact that at 2 inches, technically at 25 millimeter rounds, it's at 50 millimeters, it's like 2.00 something inches. Let's give it to those guys, so that since the 32 millimeter rounds, if they can fight in 2 ranks at 2 inches, the smaller guys can fight in 3 ranks at 2 inches. Okay, follow me? Just set that out. Doesn't matter if they're on 20 millimeter squares or if they're on 25 millimeter rounds. You get 3 ranks at 2 inches, 2 ranks at 1 inch, and I don't think there are any 3-inch range weapons, so you don't have to worry about that. If you're the solo character, doesn't matter if they're on a square or a round, you're all measuring from the same point anyway of the base, so you're not really getting that much of an advantage, no matter if it's based on the old squares or the new rounds. And you could do this for every single thing, like, you know, 40 millimeter rounds, obviously 1 rank, and at 2-inch attacks, they'd get 2 ranks. You can do that for every single different types of base size, even cavalry, go through all of that, blah, blah, blah. What do you guys think about that? I think that would be the easiest way to solve it, and basically then it really is an aesthetic choice for each player, whether or not they want to base their stuff on rounds or on squares. Because in the rules, if you implement that kind of chart, it doesn't matter what they're on, because they'd be played all the same no matter what base size. You could base them on triangles, who cares? If you know that model is, you know, if my, what's something new? If my or something is old that's new. Again, I'm only going to use Seraphon because they're the only ones that I'm familiar with for this. If my Saurus Warrior, if he's based on a 25 millimeter square, a 25 millimeter triangle, a 25 millimeter octagon, it does not matter. He gets 1 rank. Because you know that model. It's a Games Workshop model. You know it's a Saurus Warrior. It gets 1 rank in 1-inch attacks, and it gets 2 ranks in 2-inch attacks. That's it. Done. Problem solved. So please, if you think that's a good idea, spread the word on that one. And then mixed units. Basically, this was my idea for basically to give more optimization and customization of each individual unit. Again, sorry with pegging on the Seraphon. If my Saurus Warriors, they have a war scroll that says you have a unit of 10, they may be equipped with sword or like a hand weapon and shield, or spear and shield. Okay, that's fine. So that's normally you either have 10 or the same, 10 of one or the other. What I think would be interesting is with the mixed units is if you want to have 5 of your 10, have 5 be with hand weapon and shield, and have 5 with spears, go ahead and do that. 4 with hand weapon and shields, 6 with spears. Try that. Maybe that would give you more interesting tactical flexibility than something you want to do. Maybe 6 and 4. I don't know. Customize your unit how you think would be best fit their role on the battlefield. Just an idea. So let me know. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think about how to best introduce Age of Sigmar to a group that might be somewhat reluctant. And also, let me know what you think about the house rules, or especially that base sizes. And the reason why I even said back to the base sizes really quick, since I failed to mention something similar to Saga. Saga is, if you don't know, is a Dark Age / early medieval skirmish game that they have rules in there. The reason why I said it's comparable to Saga is that they have rules that specify it doesn't matter what your size of your base is, if it's on squares or rounds. They specify, depending on the size, you get so many ranks of attacks. Basically, that's just alluding to that. Their game obviously is a little bit different. But basically, you could easily make just a chart saying, hey, if you were on 25 squares, now on 32 rounds, these are the ranks of guys you get to attack with based on what range. So that's all I have for you today. Very interested in hearing your comments, and I'll talk to you later.